Okay, this video is called "What Are You Doing This Weekend? The Life of a Scholar," and it comes out of a guy asking me, "What am I doing this weekend?" And he was so surprised by my answer, I thought it was funny. By the way, there is nothing educational in this video. Just shut the video off. If you're looking for something educational, there won't be anything useful or educational in this video. This is more sort of for friends, for family, extended family, who I seldom talk to in person, but they'll find this interesting. And it'll start out here talking about my kid. One of my kids. Everyone thought he was going to go to med school, real bright kid. And he says, "Dad, I'm not going into medicine." He says, "I drive around some of the rich neighborhoods and where my friends live and stuff." And he says, "Most of the people there, they're not doctors. And look at how you live. Your life, it kind of sucks. Most of the time you're working. And when you're not working, you're usually writing a book or preparing a lecture. I mean, what kind of a life is that?" And so well, that's the life of a scholar. I like being a scholar. I mean, I wish I could do more of this medicine, nutrition, biochemistry stuff and less of this conventional medical stuff. But conventional medicine pays the bill. I would love to teach, at a med school or, and have more time to do research. But, there's no money in any of that stuff. So that's a bit frustrating. I mean, the frustrating part is that medicine is kind of like academics. In medicine, no one wants all the big industrial businesses that pay the money for everything. They don't want the patient to get better. And in school, they don't want the students to learn. It's bizarre, but it's true. I liked wrestling because everyone wanted to win, the coach, the athlete, the team. But in medicine and academics, it's more like put on a good show, collect your paycheck, and keep your mouth shut. So, I like this nutrition, pathophys, toxicology stuff because you can really help people and it's interesting, but there's no money in it. And, also the stuff about my studying and reading so much. When I first married my wife, she was like freaked out by it. She sort of thought, he's going to be, Harvard doctor's going to be wealthy and isn't that great? And then she's kind of like freaked out. She goes, "Why are you reading and studying all the time? Life isn't in a book. It's not in a goddamn book." She like knocked the book out of my hand. She's like, "How come you don't want to do anything?" I'm like, "Well, I'm happy to do something, but don't expect me to plan it, a movie or something like that." But now I know my wife likes the way I am because I'm predictable for her. And she views me as a low maintenance robot who gives her money. I mean, I only buy a couple of books a month. I don't spend money on anything or do almost anything. But, anyway, my family's the one who spends the money. They also say the best person to be married to is a surgeon because they work all the time. And then the wife gets to spend all their money. So once you're in middle age, it's very difficult to change. And so the thought for this video came out of a conversation with one of my new doctor friends, okay? And so just yesterday he asked me, he goes, "Pete, what are you doing this weekend?" And I said, "Well, somebody asked me to write a book chapter on biochemistry, on the biochemistry of cancer, so I got to do that." And then somebody also asked me to make a video about the rehabilitation of traumatic brain injury, so I got to do that. I've previously written book chapters on traumatic brain injury rehab, so I'm pretty comfortable doing that. I've seen some interesting cases and variations upon fatty liver, got me thinking about it again, so I think I'm going to make a video about that. I also have to give a lecture quite soon, and I'm going to have to talk about giving presentations. So I'm going to review that material and make a quick little video on giving presentations. Part 3. I've already done 2 parts on that. And also, I've been collected Spanish songs. I've been meaning to make a video about Spanish Christian songs, so I think I'll crank that out this weekend as well. My friend looked at me with this look on his face like, "Oh, I thought you were going to tell me, you're going to the beach or something." So anyways, he says to me, what are you going to write about traumatic brain injury for? There's nothing you could do. Once the brain's damaged, there's nothing you can do. I said, "Well, hold on a sec. There's a lot you can do. You can increase blood flow to the remaining brain tissue, promote neurogenesis, and avoid all the negative stuff, the excitotoxins, mitochondrial inhibitors, circuit inhibitors, vasoconstrictors." So there's a lot of things like that that I think are worth talking about. And then he looked at me kind of funny. He says, "So that's what old age is like for you. Pretty unusual for a radiologist." Well, anyways, I've got to spend the weekend babysitting. He's a younger doc friend of mine. So I thought that was kind of funny. And I'll just show one more thing. This is something that my family knows that they can all relate to was, when I went from having the greatest life in the world that anyone would want and be jealous of in high school. Real popular, lovely girlfriend, friends, wonderful family. And then all of a sudden, I got sent out to Stanford, from Chicago to Stanford, a million miles away. Didn't know a single person, was super lonely all 4 years at Stanford. Got a lot better the last 2 years because I was in an athlete fraternity. But even then, it was still pretty lonely compared to the good old days. Then med school's in a ghetto, so there's no social events. There was next to none at Stanford. There was 0 in med school. And I had lost track. There was no email in those days. There were no cell phones. There was no internet. So it was kind of strange. And then things started getting better once I became a surgeon, because then I was always in a big social environment. There's always a bunch of techs and nurses around and other services coming by. So I kind of enjoyed that. And getting married and having kids was a very social time in my life. But other than that, I also think there's this modern lie pretending that men and women are the same. And it's completely untrue. I mean, there's of course individual variation amongst men and women, but in general, men are a lot less social than women. In my entire life around my father, he's a double boarded doctor, chief of 2 departments. He never once made a social phone call, not a single social phone call in his entire life. I never saw it, not in my presence, and I knew him for many, many years. He lived to be 87 years old. I'm kind of the same way. I mean, I love talking to people, but I never initiate conversations, almost close to never. Social conversations. I mean, I have an entire month to go by and I won't make a single phone call. That's normal for me. So it kind of came out of this. I was so used to being by myself that I got very good at just reading, studying, and thinking in my own little mental world all day long. And I actually think that helped me intellectually. I didn't like it. I didn't like being lonely. But, and now, even now, when I study a book, I'm thinking I believe, maybe I'm kidding myself. I believe I can understand things as well as anyone in the whole world or better. And that's partly why I think it's worth the effort for me to make these YouTube videos, even though I get hardly any views. And I'll write my books, even though I get hardly any people buy them or read them. Because I know I'm doing something good. And I actually think when my kids get older and educated enough to understand the stuff I'm reading and writing about, they'll like it. And the few people who see my stuff like it. I get a lot of compliments from my doctor buddies who actually read my work or watch my videos. And also, I think that, for some men, we're sort of like made to work. Bach used to say that. Bach used to say, I am made to work. And I'm kind of the same way. I mean, if I study, this papers all day long, read a bunch of nutrition, medical papers all day, it's what I want to do. What else am I going to do? They say, well, why don't you go out to the beach? I'm like, I don't want to sit around at the beach all day. I mean, go outside for an hour to get sun if I need sun. So anyways, the reason I do all this stuff is because I feel like I'm onto something good in understanding a lot of complex pathophysiology. And I have my friends will tell me that too. My doctor buddies will tell me they've never seen anybody who knows pathophysiology the way I do. So that's why I do it. And I think it's worth doing. And, it is what it is.